channel. So we're doing a long-awaited book update video. I actually can't remember the last time I did one of these. I think it was probably in like April or something, so it's been a while, and I've read quite a few books since the last one that I'm really excited to talk to you guys about. And I actually don't have all of the books here that I'm going to be talking about because I got a few from the library this month, which is really handy, but these are all the books I'm going to be talking about. And I'm so excited about this month because I actually had quite a few good books, but I also had quite a few not so great books. And it's weird. I was going through a really weird phase with reading this last cycle where I was getting a lot of not so great books right in a row. So it was kind of putting me in a little bit of like a reading slump because I wasn't finding a good book and I was just craving like a really, really good book. So that was kind of a weird hurdle that I had to kind of overcome this last reading cycle, but I found some really good books, and I actually have a gold star book, which if you don't know what a gold star book is, you guys know I keep that journal of all the books that I read. I like track it in a little journal, and last year I read one gold star book, and a gold star book just means it's over 5 stars. It's like above the 5-star mark. Like if I could give it like 10 stars, I would, and that is what a gold star book is for me. And I have one gold star book this month, I think. Yeah, I'm really excited to share that one with you, and I might as well just start with it since I'm talking about it. But it is this one, and this is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and I talked about this in my annotations video a little bit. And this book is so good. Like if I could recommend any book out of this entire video to you, it is this one. It is fantastic. So I just recently discovered Taylor Jenkins Reid, and this is probably her first super well-known book. She wrote a lot of books before this, but this one is like kind of her first big, like well-known book that everyone is talking about. So this book is about a woman from the 1950s who is basically trying to be a famous actress, and she comes from a really kind of not so great past, not so great childhood. She moves to LA to kind of pursue acting, and this basically is her life story, right? Her life story, her 7 husbands that she goes through while pursuing her career in acting. So this book follows a girl named Monique, and Monique is like a journalist, and she's trying to make it big in the journalism world, and she gets a call from Evelyn Hugo. And at this point in the book, Evelyn Hugo is really old. I think she's in her 80s, and Evelyn Hugo tells her that she wants her to write her life story, and she wants to sell it, and she wants her Monique to make all the money. She doesn't want a penny or anything. She wants her to make all the money, and she says, sell my story, you'll be a millionaire. And Monique is like, what? And so basically it's a story that Monique writes about Evelyn Hugo, and she goes through her entire life story and all of the husbands that she meets throughout her journey. And this book is probably one of the most important books you will read in a very long time. This book has to be one of the most well-written books I have ever read in my entire life. This is a masterpiece of a book. Like, I can't stress that enough. Everyone who reads this feels the same way about it. There's something about this book that just makes you feel so many different things. There are so many important topics covered in this book that I just think need to be talked about, and Taylor Jenkins Reid covers them so flawlessly and so organically. I can't get over how well written these characters are. If you want to read a book that has the most realistic characters you will ever read in your entire life, this is the book for you. I've never loved a character so much and hated a character so much in my entire life. I've never wanted to know a character so much. I've never wanted to talk to a character so much. I want to know her. And it's just very bizarre. You feel like Evelyn Hugo is a part of your family. Like, you love her, but you hate her. You can't stand some of the decisions that she makes, but at the same time, you forgive her because she's just so flawed. But it's so hard to explain. And this will forever be one of my favorite books. And I, hands down, will be reading this again in the future, probably multiple times, because it's that good. So I'm not going to give away anything, but definitely read it. You won't be disappointed, trust me. So the next book was this one. This is All the Ugly and Wonderful Things by Bryn Greenwood. Now, I don't know if you guys remember, but in a past video, I was talking about how I love kind of like taboo books. Books that have a little bit of a like harder subject matter, things that make you think, things that make you feel uncomfortable. I love books that challenge me, you know? So I had so many people recommend this book to me, and I was a little bit hesitant going into it because it does deal with very heavy subject matter. So this book is about a young girl, her name is Wavy, and she is 7 years old when she meets Kellen. Kellen is a motorcycle rider. He is friends with her dad, and he gets in a motorcycle accident, and she discovers Kellen after the motorcycle accident. Well, during the story, she ends up creating a very close relationship with Kellen. He kind of becomes like her main caretaker, and then Wavy kind of takes care of Kellen in a way. So he's much older than her. She's 7, he's like 25, but they become very close to each other, and they show each other this amazing love that they both have never experienced before. And so with that love that they show for each other, just genuine friendship, genuine love, they start to grow an even stronger bond, and that turns into a like actual relationship. They fall in love. But the age gap is clearly quite large, and Wavy is very, very young. So this subject matter is something that is very hard to read because I feel like us as human beings are just so viscerally fighting against this idea, and so it really forces you to endure a long story about a relationship between someone that is underage and someone that is overage, and how this relationship works, and it makes you question certain aspects, some certain gray areas, and it makes you think about things a little bit deeper than you normally would, but it really puts you in an uncomfortable position while doing so. So I think that this is a really interesting book in that way. I have to say though that the beginning of this book is a little bit slow. The author really had to kind of build the characters and build the relationships, which is obviously, you know, important for a book like this. But once I hit about the halfway mark, I was super invested in the characters, I was super invested in their story, and even if I didn't agree with a lot of what was going on in this book, it was still a very, very thought-provoking read. And if you like books that have a little bit of a taboo subject matter, I do recommend this, but this is not for everyone, and it is a more difficult, hard-hitting read. For the most part, I liked it. I think I gave it 4 stars, but I didn't give it the full 5 because of the slow beginning, but it was an interesting one, I'll just say that. So then I also picked up Every Heart a Doorway by Seanan McGuire. I also read Down Among the Sticks and Bones, which is the 2nd book, and Beneath the Sugar Sky, which is the 3rd book. So this is considered the Wayward Children trilogy, or sorry, Wayward Children series, because it's not just 3 books. I think she's even continuing this farther. I think right now there's 4 books. But this is basically about kids who open doorways and go into different dimensions or different worlds. So people like Alice in Wonderland, or the kids from Narnia. And so it follows these kids who go to these worlds and then they come back. And it kind of is about them coping with the world that they have come back to, and how they cope with, you know, going to different worlds and wanting to go back, but not being able to. And it's basically their stories about what their worlds were like and how they're coping with it now. The concept of these books is absolutely fascinating to me. I think that Seanan McGuire was a genius writing these books. I love the concept. However, I was disappointed, and I just wasn't as happy with how the books turned out as I was hoping, because I really thought I was gonna love these. I gave this one, the first one, Every Heart a Doorway, 4 stars. I actually like this one a lot. I think this was a really great intro to these books. But the 2nd book, Down Among the Sticks and Bones, that one was a little harder to get through. I gave it 3 stars. It's about Jack and Jill and the world that they went to. Their world was a little bit more dark. There was some vampires and things like that. Very, very interesting dark world. And I loved the concept of that 2nd book. It could have been so good, but it was just not executed well, in my opinion. I think it could have been executed better. It was a little plotless. And then I got to Beneath the Sugar Sky. I gave it one last shot, and Beneath the Sugar Sky got 2 stars. Beneath the Sugar Sky was definitely the worst, and the only reason I say that is because it was very, very, very slow. I could not connect with the characters. She introduced a couple new characters that we were supposed to like follow and like care for, but I didn't care for them at all. I could not stay focused. I was waiting for the book to be over, and I was just so bored the whole time. I just couldn't care less about the characters in that book. And so I was like, you know what, I just don't think that these books are for me. They're not something that I really enjoy. Very, very unpopular opinion with these, because so many people love these books. So many people say amazing things about these books. So if you've been wanting to try these for a while, I highly recommend it because so many people love them. Okay, so the next duology that I read, it's actually going to be a trilogy, but the 3rd book isn't quite out yet. The 3rd book is called Ember Queen, but I read Ash Princess and Lady Smoke. Ash Princess is the first, Lady Smoke is the second, and then Ember Queen is going to be the third, which is going to come out next year. And these covers are literally some of the most beautiful covers I've ever seen. Part of the reason I picked up Ash Princess, to be honest with you, was the cover alone because it's that beautiful. So this is a very difficult book to try to explain. Every time I try to explain this book, I feel like I do a horrible job at it. But it's basically about a princess who comes from a country that has magic, and they get magic from gemstones. So the princess is from a place called Astria, and she gets kidnapped by the Calavaxians, and the Calavaxians basically like to invade different countries and take over because they want to be in power, and they took over Astria and they just wanted their magic, and in the process, they took the princess as like captive. So she's been living with the Calavaxians ever since she was like 6 years old. They treat her horribly. They beat her. Trigger warning if you don't like, you know, that type of thing, but they beat her, they whip her, they basically treat her terribly, and she wants to escape because she needs to go back to Astria and rule her country because her mother and her father were killed, and so she's the next heir. She meets a prince, she has a childhood friend that's helping her escape, and a couple other people, and this is a very interesting book series. One thing that I can say about this, I gave this book 3 stars. Actually, I gave them both 3 stars, so these were 3-star reads. They're very political books, so if you like political fantasies, I highly recommend these. They're very high in politics, and that's like the main driving force of these books. And to be honest, I don't mind politics in books. I think politics in books can really be a good driving, you know, factor to get the plot moving. But I usually like politics if they have other things rounding them out, like a romance, or a lot of action, a lot of fight scenes, a lot of war, something to kind of round out all the politics. I didn't feel like these had a lot rounding them out. They were a little bit slow at times, and the politics were the main focus. I know one girl that I watched, her name is Elliot Brooks. She loves these books, and I think the reason why she loves these books is because she likes political fantasies and she's not big on romance and stuff. But I'm interested in the characters enough to read the last book, especially because the second book kind of ended in a good place, so I'm really curious as to what's going to happen next. I think if the author could have added a few things here and there. I know she's trying to keep like a romance open, but it doesn't feel like a good slow burn romance in my opinion. It just kind of feels like she's leaving it very open just in case she wants to go that direction, but she's not really sure. So it kind of feels like you're being teased, but like not in a good way. So I don't know. It's an interesting storyline with interesting magic, and for the most part, I found these pretty interesting, and I am excited to read the last book. So the next book I read was Daughter of the Burning City. Now, you guys know that this was in my top 10 books I want to read in 2019. I couldn't remember what year it was for a second. And I think that this is like the 3rd or 4th book that I've read off of my list. I'm not doing as well on that list as I was hoping. I thought I'd be a little bit farther along on that list, but I think this is like the 4th. I'm not sure. But I knew I was gonna love this book, you guys. If you guys watched that video, I was so excited to read this. It was right up my alley. It was everything I wanted in a book. Like I talked about in that video, I love anything that is circus related. I love circus. It's just something that I've always been very fascinated in. So this book takes place in a traveling kind of circus festival called Gomorrah. And Gomorrah travels around, they have different acts, and the people that live in Gomorrah, some of them have powers, and they can do different things. There's some psychics, there's all different types of powers, but our main character has the power of illusion, and she can create these illusions that are tangible. Like you can touch them, see them, feel them, talk to them. They're almost like real people, but they're not real people. And that is what her show is. It's like a freak show. But she has been creating these illusions ever since she was a little kid, and so these illusions are basically like her family. But what happens is these illusions start getting murdered, and she has to figure out who is murdering her illusions, how they're getting murdered, how do you even murder an illusion, and it is very, very good. I loved it. There's romance in this book. It is so dark, it is so haunting, the character development is amazing. I love Amanda Foodie's writing. I definitely want to read more books by her. The thing I love, I think, the most about Amanda Foodie's writing is that she is so good at describing the world. She is so good at description. And the reason I love her description so much is because she uses scent, she uses smell, she uses sound, eyesight, everything to describe the world, but she does it in a very like quick, short and effective way to where she just uses a few words, and those few words just make you feel like you're there. Like, it's one of the most immersive books I have ever read, and she is so good at describing these characters. And the girl in this book actually doesn't have eyes, which is very interesting, so she always changes her face mask. It is just a fantastic book with a really unique world. I gave this 5 stars. It went on my favorites list on Goodreads. I enjoyed this very, very much. The next book I want to talk about is this. This is called One Day in December by Josie Silver. So I read this book after I read the All the Ugly and Wonderful Things, which was the very, very heavy read I was talking about. And I was like, you know what? I need something very lighthearted, something easy to read, just like a romantic contemporary, something that I can just fly through, right? This book is about a girl. This book almost makes me laugh. I gave this book 2 stars. This book is about a girl who gets on this bus, and she's riding along on this bus, right? She looks out her window at this bus stop, and she sees this man sitting on a bench reading a book. And the man looks up at her on the bus, and they catch eyes. And they just have to meet. She has to get off that bus as soon as she can. He's running to her, and she's trying to get off the bus, and the doors close, and the bus drives off, and they couldn't meet. So for the next year, she's obsessed with finding this random stranger that she caught eyes with on the bus. And she's obsessed with him, literally obsessed. She's like, he's my true love. I caught eyes with him one time, and he's my true love. Well, a year later, her best friend of all time, like her best friend, wants to introduce her to her new boyfriend. Turns out it's the bus boy, right? So now she spends the next 10 years wishing that she could be with him, but he's with her best friend. That's basically the synopsis of the story. Obviously other things happen, but not much. This book was so anticlimactic. I finished this book just because I wanted to see how it would end, you know, just so I could get some satisfaction. I could feel the feels. But the ending was so anticlimactic. It was literally one page, and that was it. There was no smut in this book, not a single, okay, maybe a drop, but that's it. The characters were so unlikable. The busboy was literally the worst human being alive. He was so unlikable. He whined about everything. He was so negative. He was not a likable dude. So the whole entire story, I'm like, why? Why do you like him so much? Why are you so obsessed with him? I can't. Has 4.5 stars on Goodreads. And I'm over here I don't understand. So yeah, this is just one of those books I feel like I wasn't fully on the hype train with. I'm not saying this is a bad book because it's got a lot of stars on Goodreads, and sometimes that happens with books. You're just not one of those people that likes it that much. I've watched a lot of people review this book, and a lot of people thought it was really cute. It just wasn't for me. I feel like there's a lot of contemporary romance books out there that I would like a lot more. So the next book that I picked up was Defy Me by Tahereh Mafi. Now, I talked a little bit about this series in my last book video. I think I read the first 5. Is this 6? Book 6 or book 5? I'm not really sure. I think it's book 5. So I've read all of the books so far. This is the last book that was released, and I have to say, that series is, okay, I said this in the last video, that series is, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that it's a literary masterpiece by any means. It's one of those series that you read for pure guilty pleasure, you know? It's not anything that you're going to get a lot out of, but it's just kind of one of those kind of fun, lighthearted urban fantasy style reads. But this book I would definitely say is the best out of the 5 so far. I think there's one more coming out after this one, and there's novellas between each of these, so 60-page books between each of these full novels. This is Defy Me. Definitely the best one out of all of them. I think personally all of them were entertaining in their own way, but this one definitely had the most surprise. I would just say there was a lot of strings that were tied up with this book, a lot of things that were revealed in this book, and you just got a lot of understanding with a lot of the things, but there's also some twists involved. I just feel like this book had a lot to it that you were kind of waiting for or excited to find out about, and it was just an entertaining read. I would say this is probably the fastest paced one. I liked it. I gave this 5 stars. I think it deserved 5 stars for the entire series. Some of the books I gave 3, some of the books I gave 4, but this one was 5 stars for the series in general, if that makes sense. I would definitely continue on with it if you guys have read maybe the first 3 books and you've kind of debated on whether or not you should continue. I would say continue. These books are so fast to read. They literally take you like 3 days to read. And it's worth it just to kind of get things like cleared up and tied up. I would say just go for it. So the next book I wanted to talk about in this video is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And Taylor Jenkins Reid wrote the Evelyn Hugo book that I talked about at the beginning that I absolutely adored. And this book was her last book that she came out with, and this book was really good as well. Taylor Jenkins Reid has proven to me to be one of the best character writers I've ever read in my life. Her characters are so fleshed out. They're so realistic. I can't even explain it. Like, I've read characters that I love that I feel like are very real. I think Sarah J. Maas is really good at writing characters too. But there's something about Taylor Jenkins Reid's characters that are just so realistic. Like, you feel like you can know these people. But this is about a band called The Six, who brings Daisy Jones on, who is a kind of solo artist, and they form a full band together, and they start to become really, really famous. Daisy Jones, I think, kind of resembles like a Janis Joplin type of sound to her voice, and The Six becomes a very, very famous band with Daisy Jones as the lead singer. And what ends up happening is they reach their very, very pinnacle of success. They're at their peak, and they end up breaking up. And nobody knows why the band broke up, and this is basically a story about how they came to be, how they reached the pinnacle of success, and why they broke up. And it's basically like a biography of the band, basically. And this is written in a very unique way. It is told in interview format, so each paragraph starts off with their name and then their dialogue that they say, and then the next one is the name, the dialogue, and that's literally how the entire book is written. It's as if somebody is asking these people questions and these people are answering the questions. So it's not written like a normal book, it's an interview style book, which is very different. It's the only book I've ever read that has that format, but I actually didn't hate it. I know some people said it was really hard for them to get used to. It didn't really bother me. I thought it was kind of interesting. Did I like this better than Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo? No, not quite. I like this. It was close, but it wasn't quite the Evelyn Hugo, you know, level. There's just something about Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I don't know. I feel like that is like Taylor Jenkins Reid's like magnum opus, and I think she probably feels the pressure to like outwrite herself with that one, and I don't think it's possible, but this was close. But yeah, I think I gave it 4 stars. It's really interesting. It really gives you that rock and roll vibe. There's a lot of drugs and sex and just that whole like 1970s, 1960s vibe that you kind of think of when you think of music back in those days. There's nothing more that I want than to listen to the music that they talk about in this book, because there's so much reference to their music and their lyrics and all of that kind of thing, and you just want to listen to the songs so badly. And that's the only downside to this book, is that like you're missing something. You're missing the actual music because it's such a key focus in the book. And that was, I think, one of the worst downsides for me, was like I couldn't listen to the songs that they kept referring to. But I know that they're making a Netflix like series out of this, I believe. It's gonna be on Netflix, I'm not sure. But I think they're gonna have like actual songs and stuff like that in the show, which is gonna be really, really awesome. And I think it's gonna like really help kind of round out this book a little bit. There were such strong female characters in here. I feel like Daisy Jones, as flawed as she is, there's an aspect to her that is very inspiring, and you just kind of want to know her. Just like you want to know Evelyn Hugo, you know what I mean? And I highly recommend this. I thought it was really entertaining. So with that said, down below I'm going to list all of the books that I talked about in this video. I'm also going to link my Goodreads account. So that is it, you guys. I hope you liked all of my reviews for these books. Let me know if you're going to pick any of these books up in the future, if you're looking forward to reading any of them, and let me know what you guys are reading right now, and if you guys have any books that you recommend that I read. Right now I'm reading Recursion by Blake Crouch, which Dark Matter by Blake Crouch is one of my favorite books of all time, and Recursion was my most anticipated read of the year, so I'm reading that one right now, and I just love me some Blake Crouch. His books are so good. So I will review that book for you guys in my next wrap-up video, and I'm really excited. I know it's going to be a 5-star. So anyways, guys, I will see you guys in my next video, and I hope you have a fabulous day, and I will talk to you guys soon. Bye!